Welcome to Color Trek, Keys to Great Color. Hello, my name is Charles Bernard, and I'm an illustrator. I paint science fiction and fantasy paperback book covers. Before beginning your finished painting, it's a good idea to do some rough color sketches to work out what the color scheme is going to be for your painting. And here I'll be showing you in small, rough color sketches various color schemes, and also some design principles that will help you to create more interesting color paintings. I'll be using Painter to do these little rough color sketches. I see many color paintings in which the artist doesn't seem to be guided by any kind of knowledge or understanding of color design, and therefore winds up with a color painting that is quite chaotic looking in terms of its color. Knowing what the colors are on the color wheel and how to arrive at different colored schemes, as well as learning about certain principles of design that can be applied to color, will improve your color paintings immensely. I'll be doing small rough color sketches as well as diagrams through which I'll teach you about color. I believe that these small rough color sketches and diagrams can be more effective than a finished painting because everything is being simplified and therefore can more easily be understood. And now it's time to begin. This is the Moncel color wheel, and it is the color wheel that most artists use. And you can see the yellow is at the top, and then next to it is yellow-green, green, blue-green, blue, blue-violet, violet, red-violet, red, red-orange, orange, and yellow-orange. There are 12 colors, and one side of the color wheel has warm colors, and the other side of the color wheel has cool colors, with the yellow-green and the red-violet falling somewhere between warm and cool colors. If you mix the primary colors such as yellow and blue together, you get what are called the secondary colors, which is green. Then if I mix the primary color of blue with the primary color of red, I get the secondary color of violet. And if I mix the primary color of red with the primary color of yellow, I get the secondary color of orange. So the secondary colors are green, violet, and orange. The primary colors are yellow, blue, and red. Then there are what are called the tertiary colors. The tertiary colors result from mixing the secondary colors and the primary colors. So, for example, if I mix the secondary color of green with the primary color of yellow, I get the tertiary color of yellow-green. If I mix the secondary color of green with the primary color of blue, I get the tertiary color of blue-green. So, therefore, the tertiary colors are yellow-green, blue-green, blue-violet, red-violet, red-orange, and yellow-orange. And this is the color wheel that can be used to arrive at color schemes. And one of the ways to do that is by drawing a shape within this color wheel. For example, a triangle can be drawn from one color to the other like this, thereby arriving at a triadic color scheme that uses 3 colors: the yellow, the red, and blue in this case. A rectangle can be used to locate colors, such as in this example, in which 4 colors would be used in the color scheme: the yellow-orange, the yellow-green, the red-violet, and the blue-violet. In this color scheme, each of the colors has its complementary color. The yellow-green is the complementary color to red-violet because these colors are directly opposite each other on the color wheel. Colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel are complementary colors. And the yellow-orange is the complementary color to the blue-violet because here again these 2 colors are opposite each other on the color wheel. Therefore, this color scheme, using the rectangle to locate the colors, consists of pairs of complementary colors. You can also have a color scheme consisting of only 2 colors, such as a complementary color scheme. In this case, orange and blue are used. And when these two were mixed together, and I'll show you that with the color mixer that I'm bringing over. Let me erase this color here. And let's say I apply the orange, and then I pick up some blue, and I mix that into the orange. And what happens is that the orange becomes grayed. A grayed orange is the result, or an orange that has been somewhat neutralized. Because when complementary colors are mixed together, they neutralize each other. And mixed in the correct proportion, you wind up with a neutral. That is, a gray in which there is no color to be seen. But by mixing unequal proportions of these colors, you can create beautiful grayed oranges and grayed blue colors. And as you can see here, there are various degrees of intensity of orange that I've created in this mixture here. Some of the orange is completely lost, and in other spots, as you can see, the orange has been grayed, but is still visible as an orange, but a grayed orange or a neutralized orange. Now I'm going to do a quick rough color sketch based on complementary colors, and I'll bring in this palette here and select oils, and then I'll select a brush, and I think I'm going to use the opaque round brush. No, I think I'm going to change that to a flat, an opaque flat. That's good. And I'll use the orange and blue complementary colors for this quick rough color sketch that I'm going to do using these two colors. And I'll just indicate the sky here in blue, and then the ground in orange, making one color larger than the other so that I have the principle of dominance, color dominance, in this little rough sketch. And now I'll come over here with the color mixer, get rid of that color, and I think I'm going to mix a color here using the blue and the orange like this, and then pick up that grayed color and indicate that for mountains in the distance. And I'll enlarge the brush just a little bit so that you can see these mountains better. Something like that. Now, by mixing together these two colors, orange and blue, I can create variations of color consisting of various colored grays of different intensities within this color scheme of only two colors. And I can create lighter color and darker color and grayer color and more intense color using only these two colors to create a wide range of different looking colors. If you look at this weighing scale that I indicated here, you can see that the blue is of a larger size than the orange is, just as in my rough sketch here. And that's because different colors are considered to have different weights. The cooler colors, such as the blue, are colors that are considered to have less weight than warmer colors, such as the orange. And therefore, I made the cooler blue color a larger size than the smaller orange, because this smaller orange, having greater weight than the blue, balances the larger blue. If I made the orange the same size as the blue, then there wouldn't be the balance that there is when the orange is made smaller. Now the two colors balance, just as they do in my rough sketch here. Now, just with these two colors, I can create more color variations by making the blue lighter, adding some white to it, and adding some clouds, something like that. And then I can come over here where the mountains are and create some more color variations. And I'll pick up that color and add a little blue to it to make the color a little more intense. And I can add some shadows to those mountains and have one of the mountains come forward a little more, something like that, so that they don't all line up like cans on a supermarket shelf going across horizontally like that without any variations in position. And I can create more color variations in the orange. I'll pick up that orange and then add a little more blue to it to gray it a little more. Mix a little more orange into it. And then I'll indicate that over here in the distance and I'll keep the orange up front a little more intense so that a greater feeling of depth is achieved. So you can see here in this rough sketch how color variations can be added to just these two opposing or complementary colors. And I think I'll add a warmer color to these mountains. I'll pick up the orange. Well, I already have the orange here. And I'll just add a little bit of white to lighten it and a little bit of blue like that. And then I'll pick up that color and indicate it here for the light struck part of these mountains. So I skipped ahead and carried this little rough color sketch a little further, refining it a little bit and adding a few more things to it here and there. And I think you can see now the kind of color variations you can achieve just with two colors that you select for your color scheme that are complementary. By mixing those colors together and adding white and even black, you can achieve a wide range of different looking colors and create an entire color painting with just two colors, which are complementary. Now, the important thing also to remember is that you should stay within the color scheme. If you select a complementary color scheme with only two colors, then stay with those two colors. As soon as you introduce another color, then you're going outside of that color scheme, and it's no longer a color scheme based on only two complementary colors. For example, if I added yellow, then that complementary color scheme is no longer there. It's now changed. It's become a triadic color scheme consisting of orange, blue, and yellow, three colors instead of two. So if your purpose is to use a complementary color scheme with only two colors, then stay within that scheme. If, however, you're using a triadic color scheme, which is one that I indicated with the triangle that I drew inside this color wheel, then you're using three colors and stay within three colors and don't introduce a fourth color, and so on. If you're using four colors, stay within the four color color scheme. You can also base a color scheme on just analogous colors, which means those colors that are next to each other, like the yellow, yellow, orange, and orange that you see here. However, this is a limited color scheme because you're not using any colors from the opposite side of the color wheel to balance these warmer colors. You can, however, create variations of warmer and cooler colors within this analogous color scheme by adding some of the cooler colors to these analogous colors to change their intensity and temperature. But the color scheme should appear to consist of yellow, yellow, orange, and orange, even though you're adding other colors, such as these, to change these analogous colors. So, for example, if I change this little color sketch here into an analogous color scheme, it would look something like what I'm going to be indicating here. And then the orange mountains. But I have to create variations of these colors. I can add white or black to them, or I can introduce a complementary color from the opposite side of the color wheel in order to grade these analogous colors to create more color variations. And for example, I could add a little bit of blue to the orange to reduce the intensity of these orange mountains. Or I could introduce into this orange not its complementary, which is blue, but its near complementary, either the blue-green or the blue-violet, which are found on either side of the complementary of the orange, which is blue. I'll pick up the orange and then paint it into the mixer here, and then I'll enlarge it so you can see the mixture better. What I'd like to point out to you is that when you mix together near complementary colors, the colors are reduced in their intensity, but the result is also that a new hue has been created. And that's something that you don't get when you mix together complementary colors. With complementary colors, the colors are reduced in their intensity without creating a new hue. And that's one of the differences between using complementary colors to mix your colors and near complementary colors to mix your colors. I'll pick up the blue-green, the near complementary color to orange, and then I'll add it to the orange in the mixer. And now I'll mix the two together, pick up a little more of the blue-green, and now I'll pick up the mixture, bring it over here, and show you what happened. So a grayed yellow-orange color is the result. Now I've erased what I had in the color mixer because I want to add some blue-green to it. And now I'm going to add a touch of the orange. And you can see what the result is here. The result of this mixture is another hue, and that hue is a green. So again, by mixing near complements together, another hue has been created, as well as a reduction in the intensity of that mixture. So this green is a grayed green. I'll pick up the green in the color wheel, which is an intense green, and place it next to this grayed green to show you the difference. Now, as I mentioned, when you use complementary colors, each of the colors can be reduced in their intensity without creating a new hue, as you can if you mix near complementaries together. That works with actual paints, like oil paints, acrylics, and so forth. With the computer and the RGB, you may not always get those results. You may get another hue in the mixture, but when using actual paints, that is the result that occurs, where you just get different intensities of those complementary colors rather than an additional hue, a different looking hue, when you mix them together. I'm going to pick up the orange, and then I'm going to pick up some blue and paint that into the orange, and then I'll pick that mixture up, bring it over here, and as you can see, here the mixture actually looks like a reduced purple rather than a reduced blue. If I were using actual paints, the results would be different. I would be getting a blue that has been reduced in its intensity, like this. Now that I'm adding more blue to this mixture, you can see that the mixture has turned a grayed blue. If I use more of the orange in this mixture, then I'll wind up with an orange of a low intensity. You see, like that, instead of a different looking hue. So in this mixture, I used the actual complementary color to the orange rather than the near complementary colors, blue-green or blue-violet. I should also mention that when you use complementary colors to reduce the intensity of colors to create colored grays, those colored grays can be rather lifeless looking or dull looking. So you have to be careful with those mixtures. To create richer and more brilliant looking colored grays, you could use the near complementary colors, which may help you to get more lively looking colored grays than if you use strictly complementary mixtures to reduce your colors with in their intensity. However, both methods are used. It all depends on what effect you're after, what mixtures will give you the results that you're after. And when these more dull-looking grays that result from mixtures of complementaries are placed next to more brilliant colors, those brilliant colors will glow more, will be more brilliant because of the contrast of the more dull-looking colors with the more brilliant colors. So if I added this reduced intensity orange to the sky here in my little sketch, you see how that yellow in the sky begins to look more beautiful, begins to look more brilliant. I'm going to give you another example. This time I'll mix yellow and the near complement of red-violet, which is over here. You can see it right there. I'll pick that up and mix it into the yellow, and I'll show you what the result is. I'll pick that color up and place it over here, and as you can see, a hue change has taken place. It is now a color that leans more to the orange. It has been reduced in intensity because if I pick up the orange on the color wheel at its full intensity and place it next to this color, you can see the difference. So by mixing together these two near complementary colors, I've created a different hue, as well as a reduction in the intensity of that hue, creating a grayed orange hue. If I add more red-violet to this mixture, the hue will change again, as you can see. And again, I've created a red that has been reduced in its intensity. A grayed red is the result of the mixture of the near complementaries using more of the red-violet than the yellow in this mixture. And I'll pick up the red in the color wheel, which is at its full intensity, and place it next to this red to show you the difference. These mixtures, resulting from near complementaries, can give you rather rich-looking colored grays that have some brilliance to them, compared to the colored grays that you may get from mixtures of complementary colors, which could result in mixtures that look rather lifeless and dull compared to these mixtures using near complementary colors. But complementary color mixtures still can give you beautiful looking grays when mixed together correctly. So don't neglect them. Both kinds of mixtures are used in the painting. Now it's time to continue with my little sketch here, and I have to add shadows to these mountains. And therefore, I need to reduce the intensity of the color of these mountains, which is orange. And I'm going to use the near complementary color mixtures to create my colored grays, my orange colored grays. I'm going to pick up the orange in the mountains and put it into the mixer, and then I'm going to select a near complementary, and in this case I'll use the blue-violet and mix that into this orange, and then I'll pick that mixture up and place it onto the mountains. However, that mixture is a little too dark. I need to lighten up the mixture, so I'll add more orange. Now the color is going to be reduced in intensity, but also it drops down one color on the color wheel. And that is exactly what needs to be done when applying a shadow to an orange object like this, because the color in the shadow has some of the color below it on the color wheel, within it. So the orange has some of the red in it, because the red is below the orange on the color wheel. But it needs to have a reduced intensity. And I'm going to add a little more of the blue violet and then some white, just to lighten it and gray it a little more. You see? By adding the white, it helps to gray it more. Something like that. And then I need to add a ground color. And that needs to be a dark color. Again, I'll use the blue violet and the orange mixture, and I'll come over here and pick up this mixture right here, which is rather dark. You see? Gives me a nice dark looking color for the ground area. Something like that. Of course, I'm going to make changes as I continue to work on this little sketch. As you saw in my mixture here, I added some white in order to reduce the intensity of the grayed color that resulted from the mixture of near complementary colors. Sometimes you don't want your colored grays to be too brilliant or rich looking. You want them to be a little more grayed, and that's where mixtures that result from complementary colors can come in and give you those mixtures that are a little more reduced in their intensity and not quite so brilliant and rich looking. Now I'm going to move on to the idea of using both near complementary colors. Instead of using only yellow and red-violet, I'll be using blue-violet, red-violet, and yellow. 3 colors instead of 2 to do my color mixing. And one of the advantages of that is that you can arrive at more neutralized colored grays than if you used only 2 of the near complementary colors. Because, for example, when you mix both red-violet and blue-violet together, you get violet, which is the complementary color to yellow. And when complementary colors mix together, as I've mentioned, the intensity of each of the colors is reduced, and you get a more neutralized color. And if the mixture is in the correct proportion, you can arrive at a neutral gray. I'll pick up the mixture here, enlarge the brush, and you can see it's a violet. So when the 2 near complementary colors are mixed together, you get the complementary color. The beauty of mixing 3 colors together, such as the yellow, red-violet, and the blue-violet, to give you only one example, is that by intermingling them, mixing them all together, you get various delicate colored grays as well as different hues that have been reduced in intensity. So you get a variety of different colors, which is not possible to the same degree than if you used only one near complementary color. I'll pick up some of the yellow and then mix it in here, just intermingling everything together like this. And some more yellow. I'll enlarge this mixture so you can see it better. And you can see a variety of hues and grayed colors have been produced with this intermingling of these 3 colors. So this kind of intermingling, where you're mixing the colors on the surface on which you're painting, with the 2 near complementary colors, will produce this great variety of color that will add a lot of color excitement to your paintings. To demonstrate the variety of colors that you can achieve by using 2 near complementary colors, I'll do another little rough color sketch and put this one aside for now, but I'll return to it later to show you what it looks like when I've carried it to a further degree of finish. I want to show you the variety of colors you can get by intermingling the 3 colors, the 2 near complementaries plus the 3rd color. And what I'll do is I'll pick up one of the near complementary colors, 2 yellow, which is red-violet, and then the blue-violet, which is the other near complementary, 2 yellow, and then I'll mix in yellow into this mixture here, and thereby I'll get a variety of different hues as well as grade colors. And now I'll add some white to lighten some of these colors. And I'll pick up this color here, which is a gray red-violet. And as you can see, I'm changing the format shape to one that is more vertical. Now I'll come over to my color mixer and I'll enlarge this mixture so you can see it better. You can see the variety of colors here. And I'll add a little white to the blue-violet. So lighten it a little, and thereby I get a lighter blue-violet that has been grayed like this. And I'll add it here. This could be distant mountains. The colors are harmonious, the red-violet and the blue-violet are near each other on the color wheel, and therefore they are closely related. And this puts them in harmony. And now I'll pick up a darker red-violet. You can see the variety of colors that are possible just with these three colors when mixed together. And you can pick them up from the color mixer. And here is a yellow that has been reduced in its intensity. A low intensity yellow-green. And that's because the blue-violet and yellow have been mixed together right here. So with all this color variety that is created in the mixer by mixing or intermingling three colors, you can get a wide variety of colors you can pick up from the mixer to do your color painting with. And here I'll pick up a lighter one. As you can see, I indicated this dark figure, a low intensity violet color, resulting from the mixture of red-violet and blue-violet, because, as I mentioned, when you mix the two near complementaries together, you get the complementary color. I'm going to delete these colors and start mixing again. I'll add the red-violet and then the yellow. Let me enlarge this so you can see it better. And I'll add a little more of the yellow, and you can see that the hue is changing by intermingling these two colors, and now I have a red color that has been reduced in its intensity. A grayed red color is what I wind up with. And I can add that to my little sketch here, something like that. And now I could add a blue-violet. Adding the blue-violet to the red-violet gives me violet, as I mentioned before. I'm going to pick up the more intense red-violet and add that over here, like this, to the figure. You can begin to see the variety of different colors appearing in this little rough color sketch due to the variety of colors being created by mixing together the near complementary colors plus the third color. I eliminated the color wheel at the top of the mixer so that you can see this big color wheel there. Now it's time to continue adding colors, and I can add a brighter color over here somewhere. And what I'll do, I'll pick up more of the yellow and indicate that brighter color right there, but it's a little too bright. This bright color has weight. Warm colors, bright colors, have greater weight than cooler colors. So this bright color helps to balance this large, heavy weight on the right-hand side. And I'll continue refining this little sketch and adding more color as is needed. But I'm staying with the three colors that I selected. I'm not introducing a fourth color. You shouldn't mix colors together that are the result of four colors, because four colors can muddy your colors. Your colors would look too dull and too lifeless. They would look dirty and muddy if you added too many colors into the mixture. 3 is about the limit. After that, your colors begin to look muddy. I cleared the color mixer, as you can see, because I wanted to mix another color, and I need a really dark one. So I'll mix the two near complementaries together. I'll enlarge the mixture. And then by adding the yellow, I'll reduce the intensity of the violet that has resulted from mixing together these two near complementaries. And I'll get this dark grayed violet color. I have to keep mixing until I get the dark that I'm looking for. This is pretty dark. Like that, you see? And I haven't used black to get this dark mixture. Although sometimes it is permissible, if you can't get the value dark enough with mixing the three colors together like this, you can introduce black to darken that color even more. But again, there is a danger that by adding black, your color is going to look rather dull or muddy and lifeless. So try to get your darks by mixing the three colors together like this, rather than introducing black. But if you have to introduce black to get the darks or super darks that a painting needs, then add black by all means. Now I'll add a darker red-violet to the sky, the top of the sky, like that. Sky at the top is usually darker, and then it gets progressively lighter. So I'm going to mix a color for the horizon that is somewhat lighter, and I'll start again with the red-violet and a touch of the yellow, and then I'll add some white. I'll enlarge the mixture so you can see it better. I'll continue adding white until I get the right value. And this lighter color could also be clouds behind the mountains in the distance. I'm going to paint in his arm, and he has an arm going back like that and then come forward, and he's holding a weapon. And here is this little rough color sketch that I carried further, and it was done entirely with three colors that I point out to you, two near complementary colors, and then the yellow as well. And this color combination results in what is called a split complementary color scheme, which I already pointed out to you. And if I drew a line, it's like this, from the yellow, and then a diagonal over to the red-violet, and another diagonal over to the blue-violet, creating this split complementary color scheme. I stayed within these three colors to mix all of my colors to get this variety of color that you see here in my little rough color sketch, except for two accent colors that I went outside of this color scheme to get, which is the red and the green, and you can see that right here on this backpack of this astronaut. The green and red lights here, accents, help to draw the attention to the figure. These split complementary color schemes can be very effective. One of the major contributing factors to this little color sketch and the impact it has to color is due to this split complementary color scheme. And of course, the application of design principles, some of which I have pointed out to you. If you're interested in learning even more about design and composition, you might want to check out my ArtTrek video series. I would say the major difference between a painting that is just ho-hum, that isn't very interesting to look at, and that painting which captures your imagination, which excites your visual sense, which gets you really interested in the painting, and gets you so interested that you can't take your eyes away from it. That major factor is design. It is unfortunate that there isn't that much information to be found on design as well as composition. You'll have a really tough time finding information on these crucial subjects, without which you can never hope to really create a work of art. Many of the great illustrators had a difficult time learning what they needed to know about design and composition because, as I said, this information is not easy to acquire. So even after leaving art school, they weren't really prepared enough to be able to paint really great pictures until they learned these things later through experience, through talking with other artists that knew about these things, and they passed them on to these artists. Things that they should have learned in art school, but because art school for some reason didn't put enough emphasis on design and composition, they didn't acquire enough knowledge about it, and so had to struggle to find the answers that would then later enable them to paint their great illustrations. It has been of interest to me to make this knowledge easily accessible to everyone that wants to acquire it and to be able to afford it through my Trek videos. So if you're interested, check out my website. At the end of this video, I'll give you my website address. I added a few stars, as you can see. It adds a texture, which adds even more interest. And now I think it's time to return to that little rough color sketch of the mountains that I had been working on. Here is that rough color sketch that I was working on of the mountains before I interrupted it with the other color sketch of the astronaut. Now I'd like to skip ahead and show you what this color sketch looks like when carried to a more finished state, but I'm not going to be doing any finished paintings. They take too much time. I'm interested in showing you as quickly as possible important color design principles that will enable you to improve your color in your own paintings, and that can only be done by quickly doing these rough color sketches and then showing you what the design principles are that makes these color sketches so effective, and also other things about colors such as color mixing and the color schemes. These are things that are important to know about color. Otherwise, there is a real danger that your color is not going to be very effective, and it's going to be chaotic looking, unattractive, unappealing. It won't have that beauty that attracts the viewer's attention and holds it there. And I went ahead and carried this little sketch a little further, as you can see. Here is the analogous color scheme that I pointed out, the yellow, orange, and orange colors that have been used, and then the variations of those analogous colors help to create this color scheme that looks like there are a lot more colors than just the three, because of the addition of these contrasting colors that I introduced to create grade colors, grade yellows and oranges and so forth. But I stayed within the three analogous colors selected. I didn't go outside of that color scheme. I didn't introduce opposing or contrasting colors, but only as colors that help me to reduce the intensity of the other colors and their values in order to be able to create this color scheme that you see here with these different color variations. Now, you can make the warm colors appear even warmer by introducing a color from the other side of the color wheel, which would introduce an additional color, and therefore it's no longer a color scheme comprised of only 3 colors. But if I introduce blue, I'll have 4 colors. But that blue will make the warmer analogous colors seem even warmer and add more color vibrancy through this warm and cool color contrast that is added, and make the color scheme even more interesting. And as you can see, I'm trying to find a spot where I can add this blue color. And all that is needed is just a small accent, which helps to enliven the whole painting through this contrast of color temperature. And this little accent of blue that I indicated here also helps to establish a center of interest, because the eye is going to be drawn to this contrasting color spot. And that's a way of drawing attention to that part of the painting that you would like the viewer to look at. I'm going to move the mixer out of the way here. I'm going to change the color scheme from this analogous color scheme to a color scheme consisting again of one color and its near complementary colors. And just like with the color sketch of the astronaut, I'll be using yellow, red violet, and blue violet again, thereby utilizing a split complementary color scheme. Let me redraw that configuration. It's like this. Any 3 colors on the color wheel can be used to make a split complementary color scheme if they include the 2 near complementary colors. So another example is red-orange, and then the 2 near complementary colors, 2 red-orange, are green and blue, forming the split complementary color scheme. And that split complementary color scheme provides both harmony and strong contrast of color within the color scheme. So if you use a split complementary color scheme, you're going to wind up with harmony of color as well as strong contrast of color. It's a split complementary color scheme because it splits between the violet, which is the true complementary to yellow. So therefore, this little rough color sketch would be changed to, for example, have the sky yellow instead of a yellow-orange, which I have there now. And then the distant mountain, a blue. I'm indicating raw colors right now. I'll change their intensity later. And then the red-violet over here. And then another red-violet here, which I'm going to darken. And then for the ground, I could introduce another blue. The red-violet and the blue-violet on this color wheel are near each other, and therefore they are in harmony, while the red-violet and blue-violet are further away from the yellow, which therefore provide strong contrast of color. So you have both harmony and contrast of color within this color scheme as a result. I'll bring back the mixer, and I'll place it over here for now. In order to reduce the intensity of these raw colors, all I have to do is mix, for example, some red-violet into the yellow, and that will help me to create a more neutralized yellow, or grayed yellow, for the sky. And I'll get rid of this colored mixer and add some yellow to it. And then I'll come over here and add some red-violet, thereby graying that yellow, reducing its intensity, as well as its value, and it's beginning to turn more brown, as you can see. And I'll mix until I have the color that I think I should use. In reducing the intensity of the yellow of the sky, I have to be careful when mixing in the red-violet into the yellow that it doesn't shift too much to another hue. So I wind up with an orange instead of a yellow that has been somewhat reduced in its intensity. Because as I pointed out earlier, when you mix together near complementary colors, you can wind up with a different looking hue. I can indicate that for the top of the sky. Usually the top of the sky is darker. And I can add some white to this mixture to lighten the yellow even more, although yellow is already a very light value. Now I'm going to reduce the intensity of the red-violet mountains, and I'll start off by picking up some red-violet and painting it into the mixer, like that, and I'll enlarge it a little bit. And then I'll pick up some yellow and add that to the red-violet, and add a little white to lighten it. I have to keep mixing until I get it just the way I want it. A little more white will lighten it. Too much white will make the color look chalky. White reduces the intensity of the color. It grays a color. Just as black reduces the intensity of a color and grays a color. And also the addition of white to a color cools the color, cools it down. Add a little more white, and a little more red-violet. I'll pick that up and see what it looks like. You have to keep adding the color to your painting and see what it looks like within the context of the other colors, because those other colors have an effect on that color and will make the color look different from what it looked like in the mixer or on your palette. I haven't got the mixture quite right yet. And let me pick that one up and see what it looks like. That's better. It's grayer. A grayed red-violet. I've indicated over here against the white. You can see that it looks different than it does within the context of these colors here. And this definitely is a grayed red-violet. Depending on the color against which it is seen will determine what that color is going to look like. So here this red-violet is seen against the white, and it looks different than this color seen against the yellow, and the brighter red-violet and blue-violet here. Now, this red-violet and this red-violet, they appear to be a little grayer and lighter in value and a bit warmer in color than this one does. This one appears a little brighter in color and darker in value. Now it's time to mix a color for the shadow, and again I'll pick up the red-violet and add it to the mixer, and this time I'll pick up some yellow as well as some blue-violet, which will help me to reduce the intensity of the red-violet to a greater degree than mixing only one near complement with the yellow. Because when you mix the two near complements together, you get the complement of the yellow. And if you mix complements together, then you can reduce their intensity to a much more grayer look than if you used only one of the near complements, such as red, violet, and yellow that you mix together. A grayed bluish violet that is appropriate for the shadow side of this mountain. And I'll let some of the brighter red-violet color show through. I have to add that reduced in intensity yellow to the top of the sky, which I had there before, but then I eliminated it. Something like that. I'm continuing to work on this little rough color sketch, as you can see, and I mixed some white into the red-violet to get a lighter value for that part of the mountain that is being struck by the light, but I can't add too much white because it's going to cool that color too much, since the yellow of the color of the light is striking this red-violet. Some of that yellow is going to warm up that red-violet by tinging it a little bit. The color of the light mixes with the color of the surface upon which it falls to some extent, thereby changing that color a little. And I'll continue to work on the distant mountain a little bit. Try not to go over your strokes too many times. The more times you go over a stroke, the weaker that stroke becomes, and your painting will suffer for it. It will lose its spontaneity, its look of freshness. And I'll pick up some blue that has been grayed and lightened for the distant mountain. That's too much red-violet, so I'm going to add a little more white to this mixture of blue-violet and red-violet, adding a little more blue until I get the right grade blue for that distant mountain. That's still too red-violet. Now it's more blue, but it's too dark. The value needs to be lightened a little bit. I think I'm going to start over with this mixture, and I'll paint in the blue-violet and then add some white to it. I'll enlarge this and add maybe a little bit of the yellow to gray it. And a little more white, a little more blue, and I think I'll pick up this part here, see what it looks like. That's not bad. The edges need to be softened in those forms that are further back, and harder edges should appear on the forms that are close to you. One form should dominate in size, so I have to make this foreground mountain a little larger. There should always be one form that is much larger in size than all the others. Thereby, you achieve the principle of dominance of size. I'm going to eliminate that mixture, and I'll indicate the blue again. And again, I'll add some white. By adding white to a raw color, you also gray that color. White grays colors. Black grays colors, complementary colors, and near complementary colors, gray colors. So I need a lighter blue for the distant ground area here. And you'll notice that the ground is dark because darker values work better when they're placed at the bottom of the picture area because of their great weight that they have. Dark values have more weight than lighter values. Therefore, this light-valued yellow has a light weight compared to the dark blue down here. heavier forms are placed at the bottom and lighter forms at the top. But of course, this rule can be broken. It all depends on what effect you're after. But generally, this is how it's usually done. And this dark in the foreground and the lighter values further back help to create a feeling of depth. Now, by introducing this yellow here, I'm creating a focal point. The eye of the viewer is attracted to this yellow because of the strong contrast of color that occurs here. These colors, the red violet and blue violet, as I mentioned, because they are closer together on the color wheel, are more harmonious, while this yellow contrasts sharply with the red violet and blue violet, and therefore, because of this strong color contrast, the eye of the viewer is attracted here. In addition, the yellow is a lighter value placed against these darker values that you see here, and that further helps to draw the attention to this part of this little rough color sketch. I'm going to indicate some red violets in the sky at the top because I want to demonstrate a principle to you of design that is very important, and that principle is the principle of interchange. And I'm going to demonstrate that in a simple diagram here. I'll quickly draw this diagram. And one side of the diagram will be yellow. And the other side I'll make a red-violet. And this diagram reflects somewhat the little color sketch that I did, where the sky is the yellow and the mountains is the red-violet. Now, within this red-violet, I'm going to place some yellow. And then within the yellow, I'm going to place some red-violet, thereby achieving color balance because of the repetition of these colors. The red-violet is repeated in the yellow, and the yellow is repeated within the red-violet. This interchange of color is what helps to create more interesting looking color. It helps to create color design. And you can see that in my little rough color sketch. The same principle that I just demonstrated here in this diagram is seen in my little color sketch. By repeating that yellow in the sky over here in these little yellow spots, and then repeating the red-violet at the top of the sky here, I'm demonstrating this principle of interchange found in this diagram. Another way that the red-violet could be introduced into the yellow sky to create the design principle of interchange could be by adding a foreground shape, such as a tree, for example, that has a red-violet color to it, possibly because it's in shadow. And also by adding a large shape in the foreground like this, it helps to create a greater feeling of depth. So now I've introduced the red-violet into the yellow, demonstrating this principle that I showed you in the diagram here. By just extending that red-violet of the tree into the yellow of the sky, and also thereby creating a greater feeling of depth. Adding a little more red-violet to the top of the tree, something like that, you get the idea. So one color, such as the yellow, is repeated within the other color, the red-violet down here, and the red-violet repeated within the yellow, just like you see in my diagram. An interchange of color has taken place. Color interchange provides color balance and helps to unify your color because it helps to unite one part of the composition, such as in my case here, the sky, with another part of the composition, the lower part of this picture, where the mountain is located, thereby connecting the upper part with the lower due to this repetition of color, where the yellow of the sky is repeated within these little figures here, and the red-violet of the mountain is repeated in the sky and tree, thereby connecting the different parts of the composition, helping to unify it by way of color interchange. If you look closely over here, you can see that I've added some really dark values, and those values are the black that I added, next to or in juxtaposition to the white that can be seen right here, thereby creating a strong value contrast between white and black, helping to further attract the attention of the viewer here and away from other parts of the composition that also have somewhat strong color contrasts due to the fact that red, violet, and yellow appear together. So I need to create something over here that has even greater attraction than other parts of the composition, also by adding small spots like this of strong contrasting colors. These small spots, because of their small size, placed within larger areas of color that contrast less with each other, like the red, violet, and the blue violet, attracts the attention immediately, because the eye immediately goes to those small color contrasting spots that have strong value contrasts as well. And I can demonstrate that principle with another diagram. And now if I place small white spots here, like that, within this large black shape, the eye of the viewer is immediately attracted to those small white spots. So you don't need a large size within your picture in order to attract the attention of the viewer. It can be a very small size, such as you see here, that still attracts the attention very strongly. Now, if I wanted to attract even more attention to these yellow spots here, I could reduce the intensity of the yellow sky a little more, so that the sky isn't quite as intense in color as these little yellow spots. For example, if I reduce the intensity of the yellow like this, it no longer attracts as much attention as it did before. And I'll increase the intensity of the yellow here in these little spots and make the spot a little larger, and thereby more attention is drawn to these little spots than there was before. And now, if I reduce the intensity a little more, like that, and keep the strong yellow intensity on these little spots, the attention is drawn more to them. In this diagram, you can see what I just demonstrated here by reducing the intensity of the yellow in the sky and retaining the strong, intense yellow color here in these small figures. Here you can see that this yellow is much more intense in color than this larger yellow that I reduced in its intensity. So keep this principle in mind when using color interchange to direct the attention where you want it to go, and to prevent color from competing with each other for attention because they have the same intensity of color. So now you know how to direct the attention of the viewer through intensity of color. Keep the most intense color where you want the viewer's attention to be drawn to more, which should be the center of interest, as it's called, the most important part of your picture. I stayed within the color scheme. I didn't go outside it by selecting maybe a red-orange or a blue-green and introducing that into this color scheme. So you can see that you can remain within the color scheme and still create an interesting looking color design. However, if you want to go outside the color scheme, you can do that by introducing accents of color, such as, for example, if I introduced a red here. That red goes outside of the yellow, red, violet, and blue-violet color scheme. And also I could introduce another accent like a blue-green, providing even more color variety to this color scheme. So these other colors that I introduced are small accent colors. But the main colors are the ones that are within the color scheme of the slit complementary. I went ahead and added a few more color variations, such as these white clouds here and these little spots of red-violet, which add more interest because they sharply contrast in size with the larger red-violet mountains. And then the addition of the two color accents here of the red and blue-green helps to create an even stronger focal point that draws the attention here. However, there is a danger that when you add too many accents like this, and you make the focal point too strong, that the eye is going to get riveted there and not move to other parts of the composition. Therefore, it's usually a good idea to repeat the color accent somewhere else. For example, that red that I'm placing back there. That helps to draw the attention back into the picture, away from this part. It helps to divert the attention and make this part a little less attention riveting. However, that accent that you repeat shouldn't be as strong as the main accent that is found here. Reduce the intensity a little and the size of that accent so that it doesn't compete with the main accent found at the focal point. I can create an even greater contrast here where these little accents are by darkening this part of the mountain right there, like that. And that makes that light value of the yellow appear even lighter because now it is seen against a darker value of the red-violet.